ever wonder whether you can really have love that lasts? I mean, juicy, wonderful, amazing love. Or maybe that you could even find love at this stage of life. I know it can get tricky after you've had a lot of relationships that have crashed and burned. And there is hope and there's ways to do it differently. And I'm so excited because I have Sandy Weiner in the house from Last First Date. Hello, Sandy. You are the one to help these women know that it's possible. So good to have you here.
Good to see you again, Junie. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and it is again because we've done this before and I'm like, "Oh my goodness. So exciting to have you back." You just launched your fourth book, Love at Last: True Stories of Falling in Love Later in Life. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Here's the book. If anybody's watching,
Woo!
very excited to
Ah.
launch this book because it's been a passion project, very different from my other books. In that
Mm.
I interviewed 18 couples. Well, I chose 18 couples at the end for the stories, and they're all unique and they all can give people hope that they can find their love at last too, because it's not just luck, it's actually some skills, and there's the beauty of dating later in life, and we'll talk all about that.
So good. I'll make sure to put a link to your book later in the show notes. Right now, we're going to dive in. But first, let me let you know a little bit about this amazing woman. Sandy Weiner is the Chief Love Officer at Last First Date, which I just always love that. Last First Date. Everybody wants that first date to be the last one. She's an internationally known TEDx speaker, dating and relationship coach, author, and podcast host. Her approach to coaching is holistic, encompassing a hybrid mixture of life coaching, neurolinguistic programming, and nonviolent communication. So much you bring. My goodness. All right. So everyone's going, how do I find love at this age? How do I do it? So why don't you share some of the secrets of how to do it and how to make it last?
Well, that's a big question.
We got a few hours, right?
Exactly. Well, I will say that when I interviewed these couples, some of them were clients, some of them were podcast guests, some were people that came to me through my followers, and their stories are all unique. So there's not one way to meet people. It's really the mindset that matters the most. And I had them each share the love lessons that they learned at the end of every chapter. And so they're in different categories, but I'm going to share some of the highlights of what they shared that got them to where they are, because it's really not about I have to live in the right city, or I have to be thin enough, or smart enough, or wealthy enough, or any of the things that we think are the secrets to lasting love. It really is so much of the inside job. So
Yeah.
I would say one of my favorites is to, first of all, know yourself. Be aware of your habits, your beliefs, and how they might have sabotaged relationships in the past. We have so many of us think we're self-aware, right? We think we really know ourselves, but there's such a small number. I think they've done like research on this where so much, if you interviewed 100 people, 98 would say, I'm so self-aware. I have this conversation with my youngest daughter all the time. She said, I'm so self-aware. Meanwhile, she keeps repeating the same patterns in dating. And she has certain self-awareness, but we have to really find who we are. And a lot of that comes out when you work with an expert like me or you, who can really help you to define what are those limiting beliefs, what are the habits that you might have been practicing that are actually getting in your way. So that's a big one.
It is a big one, and it's the reason so many relationships do have so much, as people say, drama, because they're bringing their past with them, all their beliefs, all their experiences, all their programming to the next relationship. And if we haven't unpacked the U-Haul, it's going to be messy if two U-Hauls come for a tiny little space, called sacred love. So spot on. Awareness, realizing who you are. Yes.
And our energy is everything, right? So how we show up on that date, the first date, how we bring the weight of that last relationship and that person who cheated on us, or everything bad happens to me, you're gonna just radiate that out into the world. And so when you radiate out the good stuff, that's what draws in the right people. So that's a big one. The second thing I want to share that a lot of people shared with me is the growth mindset. And this is really, really big. If you are a person who's always learning and growing, you're going to take every experience that you've had and then use it for your personal growth. There's nothing worse to me than meeting somebody who's so fixed and so stuck that this is just the way things are, which is why I wrote my third book, actually, Choice Points in Dating, because it's all about the choices we have, which we don't realize we have. So growth mindset
Mm.
for the win.
That's so true. Bullseye, bullseye. So there's a lot of inner stuff that, to prepare before you even get to that first date. I mean, I know that's been my journey to finding my person, where like, who am I now at this point in my life? What matters most to me at this point in my life? I think most people haven't taken a pause or a moment to actually reflect on their past and really come home to, oh, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s. What matters most to me now? And what am I bringing to the table emotionally and all that stuff? So I think that awareness is so key to having healthy relationships, and our picker. Who are we picking?
Which brings me to another one that a lot of people shared, which is they stopped dating their type. And their type is the broken picker. Usually it picks
Yes,
that
yes.
type, right? So, if you're constantly picking the same person, expecting different results, it's not going to
Good
work.
luck with that.
I know, I know. And you mentioned, knowing what you want, knowing who you are. So another thing people shared with me was know what you can and cannot compromise on. I mean, I met a couple where she had been a caretaker. She lost her husband and she does not ever want to be a caretaker again. And so she has a new partner and he needed, I think, a knee replacement. And she said to him, we're going to hire a nurse and I'm going to go away. And she did.
Wow,
And
I
I love
love that.
that.
I love that alignment with her truth, that she was able to really honor that part, because we know that when we do not honor who we are, and we're not, we don't have our own backs and we give away ourselves, that's when resentment builds up, and that's when we get really angry, maybe not even just to the other person, but mostly to ourselves. It's like, how did I let that happen again? Wow, I love that story. Now, some
Yeah. And
people might be going, "Wow, how selfish." Let's all
right.
be a little more selfish, because if we're not allowing ourselves to really honor our truth and what matters to us, it's going to come out sideways. It's going to come out sideways.
Yeah, it's so much better to be honest than to do something out of obligation and feel resentment. And
Yeah.
they had an agreement. I mean, he was totally fine with it. He got good nursing care. She went away. She came back. She was happy. He was happy.
I love
All
it.
good. And so few of us are really willing to take a stand for what's really important. So super, super important. And that leads to the communication piece, the boundaries. I mean, those are all tied into that. And the last thing I'm going to share, and there's so many more in the book, but
Yeah.
really, this is one of the most important parts of the book, most important lessons is that sometimes the most unexpected connections can turn into something extraordinary. We have to be open to those miracles happening. And there are so many great stories that have to do with just people who had given up hope, ended up in the place that they never expected because of something that happened. And they were disappointed that they ended up there, but ended up meeting their person there. And I can share some of those stories as we move along with this conversation.
Yeah, and I would love to hear a little bit because one of the things I hear often, I'm sure you do too, is where do you meet people? Where do you find people? You know, we know that online dating is the biggest, easiest way to reach more people. And yet, you know, there are some surprising ways that people do meet. Do you have one story that you want to share now?
Yeah, I want to share chapter 5, which is they use pseudonyms or just initials, JZ and
Sure.
A. And the title of the chapter is A Dinner with a Stranger in Tuscany Leads to a Soul Connection.
Oh,
This is a woman who I had worked with for many years. She's so lovely and deserved an amazing person, and she just could not find a connection where she lived in Texas. And it was the end of COVID as things were starting to open up. She loved to travel and she also spoke fluent Italian. So she and a friend went to Italy. They were supposed to stay at a certain Airbnb or something, and it fell through. And they ended up in Tuscany at this person's home where she had these dinner parties. And the total stranger, and she was like, oh my God, it's pouring out. I hate this. I should have been here. It's screwed up my whole trip. And the woman seats her next to a guy who spoke Italian. There were people from all over at this dinner. And she said she started talking to him, and it felt like she was in a bubble, like just completely in flow. And they decided to exchange information and start. She was going to go back to Texas and they were going to practice English and Italian through Skype sessions. And through these Skype sessions, she finds out that he has a partner. She's not sure, is it a romantic partner? Is it a business partner? Well, it turned out it was both. And she's contacting me and she's like, am I crazy? I'm
what do
really
I
attracted to him.
do?
What do I do? And then she just let go of the outcome. She just
Mm,
said, I'm not going to be attached. I'm enjoying him. Whatever happens, happens. I'm okay. And then they got more and more deeply involved, and he invited her to come back out. So she comes out, and they're having this whole conversation. He has this reckoning. She breaks her foot. I mean, there's all these crazy things happen. And they meet up in this beautiful place, and it's pouring rain. It's like a moment out of a movie. And he goes outside in the middle of the night and he has this epiphany that he has to break up with his partner. She's the right one for him. And up until then, they hadn't really discussed them as a couple, but it was obvious that there was some special connection. And it was complicated. So again, these things aren't, oh, we meet each other, boy meets girl, everything's great. There's complications. He had to break up with somebody. He had to disentangle his life, his partnership, his living
yeah.
conditions. And they did it. And now they've been together a couple of years. They are traveling together. This has
Oh
been her
my
passion and her
goodness.
dream. She absolutely loves travel. And
Uh,
they are like perfect for each other, but they never would have met had this not happened. So it's one of my favorite stories.
it's a great story. And what I love about there's so many things I love about that. First, that it just sort of happened when you least expect it. And I always encourage people to put down the phones when you're in the grocery store. Just be open and aware of your surroundings. You never know. And these things happen so often. And even if it's complicated to some extent, oh, he's got a partner, that's not necessarily the end of the story. But I love that she released it. I love that she was just like, this isn't okay for now. This isn't happening now. And surrender to it. Oh, I love that. Oh my God,
Mm,
that's a great story.
thank
Um,
you.
let's shift gears a little bit because a lot of people they have their deal makers and deal breakers and their list. How do you view the list thing on who to date and who not to date? What are your suggestions there? Because people need some help with that one.
Yeah. So people often have the wrong list, as you know. They have things on the list like height and weight and how many
Yeah,
degrees they have. And those are the wrong lists. Those keep you closed from love and from these
very.
surprises happening because you were so rigid in your thinking that you're only going to see what you want to see. And so I start with, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel in that person's presence? Because that's the most important thing. And most women will say, I want to feel safe in some way. So let's start with safety. And so we can say safe emotionally, physically, spiritually, uh, sexually, financially. I mean, really, if you look at it, that's pretty much what we want to feel. And then ask yourself, who does he need to be for me to feel that way? So if I want to feel safe financially, he has to be financially responsible. He has to have a retirement plan, hopefully. If he has a credit issue, he's paying it down. If he lost money in a divorce, he's figuring out how to rebuild wealth. I mean, it's not just, oh, he's a millionaire, and so you need to figure out what's important to you. Emotional safety has to do with communication. And is this a person who gets shut down around conflict? You need to be with somebody like that. And so to me, if you can narrow that down to the top 5 ways that he needs to be, you will recognize the feeling when you meet that person.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God, that's like spot on. I had a client once that she showed me her list and the first thing was he has to be 5'11" or taller. And I said, I totally get it. I'm actually 5'3" and I love tall guys. But as I said to her, you just knocked out like 95% of the guys in America. And then I asked the question, what if your man showed up and you felt safe and you felt open, you felt the joy, blah, blah, blah. You had the package, but he was 5'9". Would you really ditch him? I was actually really curious. Suffice it to say, she changed in her mind her list and met somebody soon out the gate. Like seriously, I like what you also said around when you have a clear picture of how you want to be, how you want to feel, and what like that criteria of them, you're going to spot that versus the very limited view of the other list that we have, the checklist that people go into dating with. And energetically, that just affects that first date very well, if they even get to that first date because of that list.
Oh yeah. Well, the last story in the book actually is about height. And
Uh-huh.
this woman is 6 feet tall. So she never looked at anybody under 6 feet. I mean, she had a legitimate reason more than the 5'3" person does,
Sure. Yeah,
but
yeah.
still, it's what it represents too.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna feel like we look better, we feel better with somebody who feels more protective. And there's a lot of psychological reasons for height requirements and narrowing down to like 3% of all men. But she opened up her preferences, ended up with a guy like 2 inches shorter, but he had terrible pictures. He just, it's like once you overcome that, because his messages were beautiful, he connected, he was sincere, he was consistent, he was reliable. Those are the
The
must-haves.
important things.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness, so good. Um, so people want lasting love. I mean, if they're looking for a relationship, they don't want it to blow up. Uh, and you've been talking about awareness and knowing themselves. What are some of the obstacles that you have come across in your work that get in the way of finding that lasting love? And how might they overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned a few of them, but I think that spark, that first date spark is something that really throws people throws them off. It throws them off course. And I just actually officiated my first wedding of
Aw.
a woman in Florida right around the time when we had all the hurricanes, and I didn't know if I'd be able to get there. She came in with tears saying that her therapist had told her she's probably asexual because she's never attracted to anyone. She doesn't feel that first date spark. And I said, I think it might be something else. Let's talk. And of course, it wasn't her asexuality. It was that there was a lot of fear. There were old stories. And this is what happens. And it took 4 dates for her to really fall for this guy and not keep pushing him away. But he was persistent. They had the most beautiful wedding. And it is just, I loved
Mm.
being able to take her from first date to wedding. And just that wedding never would have happened had she not given him another chance and another chance. And so don't let spark sparks get in the way. Don't let age, distance, old stories stop you from getting to know somebody.
Stay open. Stay open. And I think the fear thing is a biggie. So often people pull back and contract so quickly, thinking it's not going to work for some reason when there is an opportunity, but the fear is just in control. And sometimes we just need to slow down and just check in and like what's really going on here. And that's why your work, my work, and helping people get beyond the list, getting beyond the things, to be able to really come home to their hearts and take really good care of themselves and open. I mean, that's to me the ingredients of potential long-lasting love is starting to just know thyself, right? Know thyself. So
Absolutely.
one last thing, how to regain hope that you'll find your last first date, because there are some people that are in the second half of life and they're like, I'm 65, I'm 70, I don't think it's going to happen. What might you offer to them about it's still possible for them?
Yeah, so it really is an inside job. People find love at every age, at every stage of life. It is your working on the blocks, like we said before, working on your fears, your past experiences that might color your love life today, figuring out those core values, set boundaries around them, be really picky about the things that matter, let everything else go, and keep on dating. Like that person could be around the corner, could be the next swipe. And a lot of people stop right before they get to the top of the mountain. It's easy to give up hope. And some people just say, I'm happier single, and that's fine. If you're happy single, just
Yeah,
enjoy your single life. But if you really want partnership, and a lot of people don't know what good partnership would feel like, but if you read these stories in my book, you will see that there are a lot of people who didn't believe in love. And once they found a partner who really helped them be a better person and saw them for who they were, they didn't have to try and fake it and be something they weren't and play any stupid games that a lot of experts recommend that you do to game the system. This is just people being authentically themselves. And the more you learn how to communicate authentically and show up as your true self, the more you're going to attract somebody who can meet you where you are.
exactly. Be yourself, be authentic. I think, well, I know people put up those masks. They want to look good, they want to be loved, they want to have peace, but they're not really showing their true selves. And so we have two people come together not being fully revealing of who they really are. And I'm not saying that you have to reveal everything. It's just be you, because if you're not you and then you show up as you a month or two later, that may not work out so well. Oh my goodness. Wise, wise words. You have an amazing gift to share with my people here. Can you share a little bit about this? And I'll put it in the show notes.
Sure, I have some book bonuses. So whether or not you've purchased the book, there's some bonus videos and audio files and articles that support the book, and you're welcome to download a link for it. And of course, I would love for you to get the book as well, because it's a quick read, but it's a way to kind of boost your morale and believe in love again.
I can't wait to read the book. I can't believe I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to get it right away because there's information. I like them constantly. And by the way, everything's going to be in the show notes. The links will be in the show notes. What I know is that, I read lots of information. I'm always learning and growing. Very rarely is there a novel in my hands. There's something about stories. There's something about real life stories to inspire, to educate through their journey. So I love that you wrote this book. I can't wait to read it. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you, Junie.
That's our episode for today. Remember to subscribe and like and share. This is how we reach more people. And this is how I get to continue to do this for you, with you, and help more women like you learn and grow and open up to lasting love. Everything is in the show notes. Make sure you grab her book and her free gift. And until we meet again, mwah. One more thing before you go. Have you taken my Discover Your Love Avatar quiz? It's a 2-minute quiz that can help you not only know your strengths, your superpower because you have one, also identify some of your blind spots, some of the things that might be having you in your fear, having you behaving in ways that aren't in alignment with your highest self, the way you want to be when it comes to dating and relationships. And it'll also help you discover why maybe the stars haven't lined up for you yet. Bottom line is, you take this 2-minute quiz, you get a full report in your email with details on how to move forward in next level love, whether you want a partner or not. So you can go to midlifeloveoutloud.com/love quiz. The link is in the show notes as well. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the station, I'm going to encourage you to do that too, so you don't miss any episodes. And I hope you got a ton out of today's. See you next week. Mwah.